Hi, and in this video I'm going to show you how to do facial detection in Python in 2 minutes. Hi, Python programmer here, and as you probably can guess, I'm a big fan of Python. And one of the reasons for that is that Python's a really versatile language. Today's video is a sort of short glimpse into computer vision, and I'm going to show you how to use OpenCV, the OpenCV library, to do facial detection. Python has a few imaging or image processing and computer vision libraries. There's OpenCV, which is probably the most versatile. There's SimpleCV, which is good if you're just getting started. There's PIL, the Python imaging library, and you can do some image processing with Matplotlib as well. Facial detection, 2 minutes now.
We are going to be using OpenCV, which we are importing here, import CV2. OpenCV can be a little tricky to install sometimes. If you're having problems installing it, read this page here. There's a link to it in the description. It's a very good explanation on how to install it for Jupyter notebooks. We're going to be using that. We're going to be using Matplotlib and NumPy as well. The first thing we need to do is read the imaging. I've selected an image of a cricket team because there are a lot of faces there to detect, so it should be a good test for the classifier. So that's what cv2.imread is doing. It's reading in that image. It's a function from OpenCV. And then we're going to convert that to a grayscale image because the HAR classifier that we're using works on grayscale images. So let's just do that, and let's have a look at what we've got. So this is the team, and as you can see, there are 13 faces here, and it's quite a good test because we've got different skin tones. Some people have hair, some are bald. There are some people there with beards. So, will it be able to cope with all of that? This classifier has to be trained. We don't have any training data, so OpenCV provides that training file for you. I've picked a file which has is the frontal face file because that's what is most useful for me on this particular image. So let's load that in. And now this is where all the magic happens. This is the detect multi-scale function that will do the work for us. We'll go into what these parameters do a little later on. Let's run that, and we can see here that it's found 13 faces. There are 13 faces in this image, so that's promising. I've also displayed the contents of face detect for you to see. This line will draw rectangles around the faces, and now we're going to convert them back to color and see how the classifier has done. Well, it hasn't detected anything that isn't a face, so we don't have any false positives, and it has managed to detect every single face. So I would say that is a success. So there we are, that's a facial detection in 2 minutes, but we might want to look at a bit more detail of what's going on. So if you were approaching this problem and you didn't have any experience of computer vision in Python, you would turn to Google, you would probably find OpenCV. OpenCV really is the sort of go-to library for computer vision in Python. There are others, but OpenCV is a very good one. You might find this particular tutorial here. There's a link to this in the description too. Face detection using HAR cascades, and then it has a little explanation on how HAR cascades work. The HAR feature-based cascade classifier, how that works, and then there is a tutorial as well. You might want to find out a little bit more about HAR classifiers, and I have included a link to the original paper that explains how to do this by Viola and Jones. Also, there is a link here to a page which explains a little bit about HAR cascades as well and how they work. You might want to read up on those. This is the process that you would go through when you're doing it for the first time. And then, you might look at this particular tutorial and start pulling it apart and try to find out what these functions do. So we've used the imread function. If you're not sure how that function works, then you can click on it here and on the documentation, you get an explanation of what the function is and how to implement it. And that's true of most libraries in Python and of Python itself. If ever you're stuck, even as a beginner, go to the Python documentation, go to the documentation for the library that you are using, and that's a pretty good place to start. So what happens next? Well, we have now converted it to grayscale because that's what we have to do. We know that because we have followed this tutorial here, and that does the same thing here. And again, we want to see how that particular function works. Then we have it here, and we have a good explanation of how this particular function is implemented and how it works and what the parameters are. So we've done that. And we've displayed the image and we've loaded our training file, and then we come to this line here, the detect multi-scale, and this is where we implement the har feature cascade classifier. And then we have these parameters here, the scale factor and the minimum neighbors. And I'm not going to go into a detailed explanation of how this works because I've given you links on where to find that information. But these parameters are really important. And if we go to this page, and again there's a link to this in the description, this will explain what this particular parameter, the scale factor, is doing. The scale factor allows you to find faces of different sizes within an image. And here we have an explanation of what's going on. Also, the minimum neighbors is the number of times a particular feature has to be found before the algorithm will see it as a face. Anything less than 5 and it will be discarded. And there's a good explanation of what the parameters are doing here on this page. Again, there's a link in the description. And this should be your process when approaching a new problem in Python. And then, we've done the hard bit. We've used this rectangle feature here, which we found in this tutorial on the OpenCV page. There it is. And again, if you click on that, you get an explanation of how this function works. So that should be your approach. That is how to use Python to do facial detection using the OpenCV library.
So I hope you found that useful. If you want to learn more about Python, if you want to learn to program Python, take a look in the description. There are lots of links there, not only related to today's tutorial, but to Python in general and how to learn Python. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.